Wisconsin, of course, is known for its cheeses. That's why we had to make sure that we stopped at the Shullsburg cheese store on today's episode. I'm here with Scott Stocker. He is the CEO of Shullsburg Creamery. Scott, thanks so much for having us in.
You're welcome.
Tell me a little bit about Shullsburg Creamery. How did it get started? Where did you get involved?
My father bought it in 1972 from the original owner. I thought he was crazy. After I came up here to visit, he started putting pressure on me to come help him, and I was pretty satisfied. I had a job in Chicago, had a steady girlfriend. So after a while, I realized he'd gotten himself into a situation where he needed my help. So family's family. Mm-hmm. And so I quit my job in Chicago, proposed to my future wife. She accepted, packed up and moved up to Shullsburg, Wisconsin, and went to work in the family business for twice as much work and half the pay, as you know how it goes, family business. So
for me, the idea of moving from Chicago to Shullsburg, Wisconsin, which is a lovely town, but it's a very different atmosphere compared.
Well, my father was 47, wore out, tired of merger acquisition activity, wanted to own his own business, everything fit for him. Getting kind of coerced to come up and help him as a 22-year-old with a new bride. That was a little bit of a life change for us.
Yeah.
So we adapted. It's a safe place. It's when I drive to work in the morning, I see cows and cornfields and sunrise.
Oh, that's great.
And I remember fighting the traffic on the way to work every morning on North Avenue on the way into Chicago. So I mean, there's trade-offs, and 41 years later, here we are. We started expanding our distribution. My father was an entrepreneur, so he wasn't going to sit still for retail store sales. And pretty soon we started expanding. I was making cheese, and I'd learned from some real good masters how to make good cheese, and then we needed a salesman. So he pulled me out of the factory and said, "You're our new salesman." Well, I didn't know anything about sales. I didn't know anything about sales, okay? But I guess I'm a pretty good BSer, so we started doing our thing. And I started learning from these customers that we were calling on. We started these routes. The old guy, Tony, had started delivering to grocery stores many years before, which was kind of unique because there weren't that many people doing that in the cheese industry. Most everyone made cheese and sold it to a broker. Mm-hmm. So Tony packaging cheese and selling it was kind of unique. And we worked off of that and started that. Tony had created a cheese cutter with an old barber chair. And we took 20-pound blocks out of the factory, set them on top of this stainless steel attachment that he designed on top of this barber chair, and then they pumped the cheese up through the cut, up through the wire. Right. And then we had 3 or 4 old ladies standing there wrapping 1-pound block.
Huh.
And they did it all day long. And this is what we did. This is our start. We probably had 10 or 12 items. I'd come in and load the truck in the morning through the front doors of the creamery. And then I'd go out and literally pedal off the back of a truck. That's how we got started.
That's interesting.
So we got the business up to about $300,000 a year within a few years of him buying it. And as we stand here talking, the business is a $40 million a year company.
So going from $300,000 to
$40 million.
That's incredible. That's incredible. Have you, changed your flavor profiles over the years? Have you tried to chase trends, or is this more of you guys know what you do well, or do you go into those specialty flavors, or what do you guys do?
I follow what my customers ask me to get them. I'm assuming as a wholesaler that my customers running a retail store are sharper at what the consumer wants than I am. Mm-hmm. If they come to me and ask me for some, I find it. If we can't find it, we make it. So we manufacture all kinds of different things. Colby Jack used to be a mistake. It was leftover Monterey Jack and Colby in the vat. What are we going to do with it? I don't know. We mixed it together.
Right.
So I went out and started selling it to the stores as it was a fluke. And I didn't dare tell them it was leftover cheese in the vat. I just told them it was some new invention. Next thing you know, it's the best seller we've got. So we're actually making vats of Colby, Monterey Jack, mixing them together. So that was an innovative item.
What would you say is the core of your cheese business? What
The core of it?
Yeah. What is the bread and butter for you guys?
It's the Wisconsin grades. The traditional old Wisconsin grades are the ones that drive the bus. You know, sharp cheddar, mild cheddar, medium cheddar, Swiss cheese, Munster cheese, Monterey Jack cheese. Colby Longhorn's a staple. I made thousands of pounds of Colby Longhorn in the factory when I was growing into the business.
So, Scott, I love cheese, but I really also enjoy this location. Tell me a little bit about how this came about.
It's kind of like an evolution. This was actually the Brewster Cafe back in the 1900s. This building's the oldest brick building in Shullsburg. It's called the Stevenson Brick Building, and it's been anything. It's been an apothecary. It's been a barbershop, rental office. I mean, you name it over the years. Ultimately, it ended up being the Brewster Cafe. This sat here vacant for many years. As the creamery expanded, I finally moved the cheese store in here. The only thing original in here it'd be the walls and ceiling. I also want to bring in local items from around the region, so we have that. Trying to get bulk cheese sliced off the loaf, so we put in that full cooler. That was kind of our benchmark and trademark, is having that loaf cheese sales. We also have locally vinted wines and locally distilled hard liquor, which is a nice, big, booming business in Wisconsin.
Right.
So we kind of got rid of the big old nationals, much to their chagrin, you know, because they're losing shelf space. Not that it matters that they lost our shelf space, but we did put in some from the distillery in Monroe. And I think it's doing pretty good.
Right.
You know.
So when somebody's walking down Main Street,
local stuff, you know,
and they see this store and they pop in, what can they expect?
They expect a knowledgeable person selling them high quality cheese behind the counter, lots of things on special, unique local items that they can take home for souvenirs, and stuff that they can't find in their retail stores, such as our, we call it beer curd on the counter. We don't sell that to the retail store, it's only unique to here. And there's a number of other items like that here. So they can have a good time here is what they can have. That's the fun part of it.
Well, Scott, this is a great place, and Shullsburg Creamery is an incredible company, and I'm really happy that I was able to stop and talk with you and learn a lot more about the history of it.
I'm glad you stopped in. It was fun.
Thanks a lot.
All right, you bet.